They tell you not to go near Skinwalker Ranch. They warn you about the things that live there. And they warn you that sometimes whatever is there follows you back. I really should have listened. Just 2 weeks ago, my life was completely normal. Boring even. I had a 9 to 5, a quiet life in the suburbs, and the most exciting thing I did was find a new hiking trail on the weekends. But I had this obsession, this nagging curiosity that wouldn't leave me alone. Skinwalker Ranch. I'd consumed everything I could find about it. I read the books, I watched every single documentary, and I spent way too many nights falling down internet rabbit holes of eyewitness accounts. The stories were insane. Massive, bulletproof wolves, UFOs and orbs of light, cattle mutilations, and shadowy figures that moved in ways that just weren't possible. I knew the legends, the Navajo folklore of the Yi-Nalt-Loshi, the Skinwalker, a malevolent witch who can turn into an animal. I knew all the warnings, but knowing and believing are two totally different things. For me, it was the ultimate campfire story, the peak of American paranormal lore, and I just wanted to get close to the flame. I told myself I was a skeptic, but honestly, I was just a thrill seeker with a dangerous amount of curiosity. The plan seemed simple. The ranch itself is private property, and since the current owner, Brandon Fugel, bought it in 2016, it's been sealed off tighter than a drum. But the land around it? The Uinta Basin is vast, remote, and a lot of it is public land. I figured, hey, I can get close enough, camp out for a couple of nights a few miles from the property line. What could possibly happen? I packed my truck feeling way too confident. Tent, cooler, cameras. I was ready for an adventure. As I drove deeper into Utah, the world just got quiet, vast, and empty. The mountains on the horizon looked like the teeth of some ancient sleeping creature. The beauty was overwhelming, but it was a harsh, lonely kind of beauty. It felt like the land didn't want me there. It was just tolerating my presence. I found a spot on public land, miles from any real road, with a decent view of the ridge that marked the infamous property. I set up my tent, cracked a drink, and watched the sun go down, feeling like the king of my own very foolish world. The first night was unsettling. Not outright terrifying, just off. The desert at night has its own sounds, but this was different. It was a silence that felt heavy, like it had weight. And then came the lights. I saw them on the horizon near the ridge. They definitely weren't airplanes. They'd just appear, hover silently, and then vanish in the blink of an eye. It was weird, but it was also what I came for. I actually filmed a little, my heart pounding with excitement, not fear. I felt like I was finally seeing it for myself. The next day, I decided to explore. I hiked toward the ridgeline just to see how close I could get. The air was dead still. No birds, no bugs, just the sound of my own breathing. That's when I found the tracks. They looked like they belonged to a wolf or a huge coyote, but they were far larger than anything normal. I followed them for maybe 50 yards. The prints were deep in the dry, packed earth. And then they just stopped. They didn't fade out. 1 second there was a clear, deep print, and the next there was nothing, just undisturbed dirt. It was as if a 200-pound animal had been plucked straight out of the air. A chill went down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. That wasn't exciting anymore. That was just impossible. I booked it back to my camp, trying to convince myself it was a trick of the light or the wind, anything. That night, the real fear started. As I was sitting by my dying fire, I heard a sound. It sounded like a woman crying for help. It was faint at first, but it got louder, echoing off the rocks. I grabbed my mag light, my heart hammering against my ribs. The sound was coming from a sheer rock face about 100 yards away. There was no way anyone could be up there. It was a lure. I knew it in my gut. Then the crying stopped, and a new sound started. A voice. It was whispering, and it sounded familiar. It was my own voice, twisted and distorted, whispering my name out of the darkness. I scrambled into my tent and zipped it shut, my hand shaking so bad I could barely do it. And that's when I saw the shadow against the tent wall. It was a huge shape,
pacing just outside the glow of my lantern. It was tall, impossibly tall, with a head that was sort of canine-shaped, but it was walking on two legs with this awful jerking motion. It circled my tent for what felt like an eternity. I didn't dare make a sound. I just sat there, frozen, praying for sunrise. The second the sun came up, it was gone. I didn't even think. I threw my gear in the truck, left the tent right where it stood, and I drove.
That 15-hour drive home was a blur of gas station coffee and pure adrenaline. The further I got from the basin, the more the fear started to fade, and this shaky relief took its place. It felt like waking up from a really bad dream. The sun was out, the highways were busy, and the world felt normal again. I started to rationalize everything. I was just exhausted. I was alone in the desert. My mind was playing tricks on me. The tracks, the voice, the shadow, it had to be an illusion. Just a story I told myself. I was almost home, driving through my own neighborhood when I glanced in my rearview mirror. For just a split second, I saw a shadow in the bed of my truck. It was a flicker, a dark shape that blotted out the light for an instant and then just vanished. I slammed on the brakes, my heart seizing up in my chest. I looked again. Nothing. Just my empty truck bed. It was just paranoia. My nerves were shot. It had to be. I thought the horror was contained to that patch of desert. I thought I had escaped. I was so wrong. The next part of this story, this is the part I'm living through right now, every single day. If you've ever heard of anything like this, if you have any idea what to do, please tell me in the comments. I'm desperate. And if you want to know what happens next, make sure you're subscribed because I have to show someone what's happening to me. The first week back was quiet. I dove back into my routine, trying desperately to cling to anything mundane. But this deep, gnawing unease had taken root. I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched, even inside my own house. My dog, a Rottweiler who barks at everything, would suddenly go dead silent. He'd just stare into an empty corner of the living room with his tail tucked between his legs, whining softly. Then, small things started happening. I'd come home from work to find a kitchen cabinet hanging wide open. I'd leave a book on the coffee table and find it on the floor in another room. At night, I started hearing these faint scratching sounds coming from inside my closet walls. I blamed it on the house settling, my own memory, anything to avoid the terrifying truth that was slowly dawning on me. It wasn't over. It had followed me. The hitchhiker effect they talk about in the forums, it's real. The subtlety ended last Tuesday. I was watching TV when I heard a huge crash from upstairs. It sounded like a piece of furniture got thrown against the wall. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a fireplace poker, and crept up the stairs. My bedroom door was open. Inside, my heavy oak dresser had been dragged into the middle of the room. The window behind it, which I always keep locked, was wide open, the curtains fluttering in the breeze. And on the carpet, they were smudges of dry, reddish-brown dirt, the same dirt from the desert. I don't really sleep anymore. The scratching in the walls has been replaced by a low growl that seems to come from right behind my headboard. 3 nights ago, I was jolted awake by a noise from my closet. The door was cracked open just an inch, and from the total blackness inside, 2 points of light were staring back at me. They were eyes. They glowed with this faint internal light, like hot embers, and they were not human. It's a hunter, and my home is its new territory. I see it now in these fleeting glimpses. Sometimes it's a massive, shadowy animal moving through my backyard at dusk, a creature that looks like a wolf but is twice the size. Other times, it's a tall, thin silhouette of a man standing across the street, under a streetlight, just watching my house. It shifts.
It changes. The only thing that stays the same is this feeling of a malevolent intelligence. It's not just a ghost, it's studying me. I'm making this video because I don't know what else to do. I went to that place looking for a story, something to tell my friends, something to make my boring life feel a little more exciting. And I got one. The problem is, I'm trapped inside of it now. This entity, this skinwalker, this thing, it's here. It's in my home. The warnings are real. Don't go looking for these things. Don't even whisper their names. Don't trespass on their land, physical or spiritual. You might just invite something back, and your front door isn't going to stop it. The scariest part? The last few nights, they've been quiet again. The growling has stopped. The scratching is gone. But that feeling of being watched is more intense than ever. I don't think it's hunting me anymore. I think it's just getting comfortable. I think it's home.